But she chose not to be here.
Judge, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Judge Lyman stormed out of the courtroom today after Blake Lively's newest accuser revealed shocking claims that her brands were allegedly selling unsafe, low-quality products to consumers. What started as a straightforward harassment case has now spiraled into one of Hollywood's most chaotic legal implosions. The judge, visibly frustrated, appeared to have reached his limit. What was once a single complaint has become an endless series of scandals, each more jaw-dropping than the last. Blake Lively's legal saga began as a standard workplace misconduct suit, but within months, it mutated into a tangled web of lawsuits, PR meltdowns, and corporate exposure. Initially set for trial in 2026, the case has been fast-tracked as new allegations surface almost weekly. What seemed like a simple dispute has now evolved into a sprawling narrative of deceit, manipulation, and potential corporate fraud. The deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became, this was no isolated issue. It was the collapse of a carefully constructed image. In the beginning, the lawsuit revolved around a single alleged incident, an inappropriate comment on set, and a subsequent claim of harassment. But by the pre-hearing stage, the floodgates had opened. Former employees, associates, and even collaborators began stepping forward, each with their own stories of misconduct. The court's decision to expedite hearings shocked both legal experts and Hollywood insiders. Suddenly, Blake wasn't facing one lawsuit, she was facing an avalanche. The courtroom became a revolving door of testimonies, legal motions, and whispers about how deep the corruption might run. Each day peeled back another layer of her brand, revealing cracks beneath the glossy exterior. Her reputation, once defined by poise and feminism, now stood trial alongside her actions. As the hearings progressed, the atmosphere grew heavier. Judges and attorneys, initially expecting a procedural case, found themselves drowning in scandalous evidence. The tension in the room was suffocating. What should have been a routine proceeding devolved into chaos, with emotional testimonies and explosive accusations reshaping the entire narrative. By the fourth day, Judge Lyman's patience finally gave out. His tone shifted from firm to exasperated. The courtroom had turned into a circus, a mix of raw emotion, scandal, and spectacle. Every revelation hit harder than the last, from personal betrayals to business malpractice. The story was no longer about harassment. It was about the dismantling of an empire built on illusion. Each new witness painted a darker picture of Blake's behind-the-scenes persona, describing her as manipulative, controlling, and volatile. The judge, overwhelmed by the spiraling chaos, began showing visible signs of fatigue. Legal order was slipping through his fingers as reporters swarmed and whispers echoed through the gallery. Even the prosecution struggled to keep pace with the avalanche of information. Then, just when it seemed the courtroom couldn't handle any more drama, a new twist changed everything. A former employee took the stand, breaking down as they described years of toxic treatment and unethical business practices under Lively's leadership. The revelation that her lifestyle brands might have knowingly distributed harmful products sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Gasps filled the air as lawyers scrambled, and the judge abruptly called a recess, then walked out entirely, shaking his head in disbelief. It wasn't just a breakdown in decorum, it was the implosion of control. In that moment, everyone understood this was no longer a single lawsuit. It was the public unmasking of a Hollywood myth. The case had grown too big, too emotional, and too volatile for anyone to contain. The judge's exit symbolized what everyone already felt. The system itself was cracking under the pressure. What was supposed to be a fight for justice had morphed into a courtroom nightmare exposing the rot beneath Hollywood's surface. The question now isn't whether Blake Lively is guilty of one crime or another. It's how far the fallout will reach and how many careers, companies, and reputations will collapse before the final verdict is even read.
Stardom.
Can Blake Lively withstand the storm now surrounding her? The revelations only intensified, keeping the media in a constant state of frenzy. What began as a career-threatening scandal had now become a reckoning with her entire public image. The focus of the case shifted dramatically, forcing everyone to face unsettling truths about the woman behind the fame. This wasn't just a fight for her career anymore, it was a battle for her legacy. The first whistleblower to step forward did so quietly, their voice steady, but their words devastating. They described in detail the alleged abuse they suffered while employed under Blake and her mother, Elaine Lively. What started as complaints about poor working conditions quickly spiraled into disturbing accounts of emotional and physical mistreatment. According to the whistleblower, the Liveleys ruled their staff through fear and manipulation, regularly crossing professional and moral boundaries. Their testimonies didn't read like petty grievances, but like a pattern of systematic degradation within Lively's inner circle. The stories painted a grim portrait of life inside the so-called Lively empire. Soon, more employees came forward with equally harrowing accounts. They described a toxic environment fueled by constant belittlement, where verbal abuse and intimidation were commonplace. One former assistant recalled moments when Blake allegedly mocked their looks, berated them publicly for trivial mistakes, and ordered them to perform humiliating tasks just to prove loyalty. The sense of dread was pervasive. Staff lived in fear of being replaced for the smallest misstep. It wasn't about performance, it was about control. Behind the glamorous facade was a culture of power imbalance and silent suffering. The lines between professionalism and exploitation had blurred entirely. The workplace, once seen as a dream job, became a psychological battlefield. What does it reveal about a leader when fear, not respect, becomes the driving force of their empire? And just when the court thought it had heard the worst, came the most explosive claim yet, one that would shatter the illusion of Blake Lively's picture-perfect persona and change the course of the trial forever. Against Blake Lively deepened. The most disturbing revelation yet came to light: allegations surrounding her personal conduct with a young male employee. According to court testimony, when this employee was just 20, he endured unwanted advances and inappropriate behavior from Blake herself. He described how she made lewd comments about his body and touched him in ways that left him deeply uneasy. His account was not of flirtation but of humiliation, a pattern of power and control disguised as banter. In one particularly harrowing instance, he claimed Blake made crude remarks about his clothing and even touched his private areas in what he called a deliberate attempt to mock and dominate him. This wasn't an awkward misunderstanding. It was a calculated abuse of authority, leaving many to question how such conduct could occur under the public eye of Hollywood. Yet, as shocking as this was, it proved only the start. More employees began coming forward, revealing a toxic workplace culture built on favoritism, manipulation, and fear. Former staff detailed how they were coerced into hiding unethical practices, from product safety violations to mishandling legal compliance, all under pressure from Elaine Lively, who was described as the enforcer behind her daughter's empire. Compliance wasn't optional, it was demanded. Corners were cut, laws ignored, and morality sacrificed for the sake of protecting the Lively brand. Each new testimony peeled back another layer of deception, exposing a system where loyalty was weaponized and silence rewarded. As the scandal grew, the court of public opinion turned swiftly. Blake Lively, once hailed as Hollywood's golden girl and a paragon of elegance and integrity, was now seen as the emblem of its corruption. The image of family values and philanthropy that once defined her crumbled overnight. Her wholesome brand now looked like a meticulously crafted illusion masking years of manipulation and misconduct. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Sponsorships began to waver, projects stalled, and her name became synonymous with betrayal rather than beauty. Fans who had once admired her authenticity now viewed her as the face of an industry that thrives on exploitation and moral decay. Could Blake Lively ever repair her shattered reputation, or had her downfall already been sealed? Her legal team, led by high-profile attorneys, fought back fiercely, seeking to discredit the whistleblowers and dismiss the claims as opportunistic fabrications. But the consistency of the testimonies and the growing mountain of corroborating evidence made one thing clear: this was no longer a media scandal. It was a reckoning. As the case moved forward, it became clear that this was far bigger than Blake Lively's personal conduct. The focus had shifted to the culture she cultivated within her business, one that appeared to reward manipulation, intimidation, and exploitation. The mounting pressure weighed heavily on both the Lively family and their legal teams. What began as a seemingly straightforward harassment lawsuit had morphed into a sprawling legal battle, threatening to reveal a systematic pattern of abuse and corruption. The first signs of trouble emerged with the sexual harassment allegations, setting the stage for a wave of explosive revelations. A single claim quickly escalated into multiple accusations spanning Blake's personal and professional life. Social media, ever the battleground for public opinion, erupted with both support and condemnation. While some fans rushed to defend Blake, others began scrutinizing the carefully constructed image she had spent years perfecting. As more whistleblowers came forward with stories of abuse, coercion, and unethical practices, public perception of Blake shifted dramatically. How could an image so meticulously built crumble so rapidly? Platforms like Twitter and Instagram became arenas for dissecting every public appearance, staged photo, and red carpet moment. Some followers insisted the allegations were false or exaggerated, citing media bias, while others could not ignore the growing mountain of evidence and first-hand accounts from employees who claimed to have been mistreated by Blake and her mother, Elaine. The backlash was immediate and widespread. Blake Lively, once synonymous with elegance and a squeaky clean reputation, was now associated with scandal and controversy. Questions arose. Could she ever regain the public's trust, or had her legacy already been tarnished beyond repair? Behind many powerful Hollywood figures stands a hidden influence, shaping decisions and controlling narratives. In Blake's case, that person was her mother, Elaine Lively. For years, Elaine had been both confidant and manager, instrumental in crafting her daughter's public persona. But as the legal battles intensified, Elaine's role drew scrutiny, with allegations that she had played an active part in fostering a toxic workplace environment. The mother-daughter duo's tight control over Blake's career became a central element of the scandal, prompting questions about how much of Blake's image and success had been orchestrated by her mother. Was Elaine the mastermind behind the empire, or simply complicit in her daughter's downfall? Meanwhile, the media's role in Blake's public image became increasingly apparent. For years, Hollywood relied on PR teams to shield stars from scrutiny, and Blake was no exception. Early in the scandal, her team worked tirelessly to counter allegations and frame the narrative in her favor. But as evidence mounted, the media shifted from protectors to interrogators. Outlets that once celebrated Blake as a cultural icon began questioning her actions, exposing the stark contrast between her public persona and the accounts emerging from former employees and insiders. What had started as a single harassment case was now a full-scale reckoning, revealing a complex web of manipulation, control, and ethical compromise that extended far beyond Blake herself. The shift from celebrity spin to harsh reality was jarring, and it quickly became clear that the media, once a tool to amplify her image, had turned into a force working against Blake Lively. Could she ever escape the relentless storm, or was she now permanently trapped in the narrative of scandal? The trial had already been tense, but it reached an unprecedented level of drama on the fourth day when the judge, visibly frustrated from the outset, abruptly walked out of the courtroom. The cause, a fresh wave of allegations, each more shocking than the last, had just been presented. The judge had tried to maintain control over a case that was spiraling wildly out of hand, but the mounting pressure proved too much to bear. The breaking point came when a new whistleblower took the stand, revealing further disturbing details of Blake's behavior. The courtroom, already tense, transformed into an emotional battlefield as Blake's team scrambled to defend her against damning evidence. Blake, who had maintained composure up until this point, was visibly shaken. The chaos was palpable, and her legal team, expecting a routine day of proceedings, found themselves caught off guard. Each new allegation hit Blake like a freight train, slowly cracking her typically controlled demeanor. For someone who had always prided herself on being in control, the uncontrollable nature of this trial was overwhelming. Could she maintain composure under such relentless scrutiny, or would the pressure finally break her? Blake's legal team struggled to keep pace with their rapidly expanding case. They had hoped for a swift resolution, perhaps via settlement, but the cascade of allegations made it impossible. They scrambled to discredit whistleblowers and cast doubt on their claims, but the evidence proved increasingly difficult to counter. What had begun as a single sexual harassment claim had evolved into a sprawling web of accusations threatening to dismantle her career. Multiple lawsuits emerged, each revealing a darker side of Blake's meticulously cultivated public image. For years, she had been celebrated as Hollywood's sweetheart, charming, polished, and graceful. But as these scandals surfaced, the cracks in her facade became impossible to ignore. The first sexual harassment allegation was merely the beginning. Former employees came forward, detailing manipulation, belittlement, and coerced complicity in ethically questionable practices under Blake and her mother, Elaine Lively's, direction. The emotional toll on these employees was evident, painting a picture of a toxic, fear-driven workplace. Blake's carefully marketed brand of strength and integrity crumbled under scrutiny. The media, once a loyal ally shaping her public persona, now exposed the raw, uncomfortable truth. Social media, always a powerful amplifier, turned against her. Fans and followers who once admired her as a role model began questioning her integrity, and her philanthropic endeavors were now seen as hollow PR gestures. Allegations of fraud, mistreatment of employees, and legal violations reshaped Blake as a symbol not of grace and charm, but of Hollywood's darker, exploitative underbelly. What had once been a pristine, well-crafted image was now synonymous with deceit, manipulation, and exploitation. In trying to control the narrative, Blake Lively's carefully constructed empire of influence and reputation began to crumble, leaving her exposed to the harsh glare of public scrutiny and legal consequences. The perfect facade was gone, replaced with a portrait of scandal and betrayal. In an effort to shift the narrative back in her favor, Blake Lively attempted to redirect attention onto others, most notably actor Justin Baldoni. She accused him of making an allegedly inappropriate comment about her perfume during a public event, claiming it made her feel uncomfortable. What Baldoni had intended as a harmless compliment quickly became a significant point of contention in Blake's legal strategy. For some, it seemed like a genuine case of harassment. For others, it appeared to be a convenient tactic to deflect attention from the mounting allegations against her. Public reaction to Blake's claim was deeply divided. Supporters rallied behind her, insisting that her feelings should be taken seriously. Meanwhile, critics, already skeptical due to her growing legal troubles, viewed the accusation as an exaggerated maneuver designed to play the victim amidst far more serious claims. The backlash intensified, and debate raged over whether the harassment claim was legitimate or simply a calculated move to manage damage control. As the trial progressed, focus shifted from addressing the core allegations against Blake to scrutinizing her actions toward Baldoni. Justin Baldoni, unprepared for the legal spotlight, maintained a calm and measured response. He explained that his comment had been intended as a genuine compliment and expressed regret if it made Blake uncomfortable. Despite his attempts to clarify the situation, he found himself swept into the eye of a media storm, forced to navigate relentless public scrutiny. A routine professional interaction had escalated into a headline-grabbing spectacle, turning the courtroom into a stage for public opinion where both parties were examined relentlessly. Meanwhile, Blake's legal challenges continued to multiply. The original sexual harassment case was only the beginning. Additional lawsuits emerged, encompassing claims of employee mistreatment, allegations of fraud, and breaches of contract. The increasing legal pressure strained Blake's resources, leaving her legal team struggling to manage the growing volume of claims. Every day brought new allegations, each one further complicating her business and personal reputation. Accounts of mistreated employees and fraudulent practices highlighted the hidden costs of maintaining fame and a carefully curated public image. Blake's situation became a cautionary tale, demonstrating how the pursuit of perfection and control can come at the expense of integrity. As lawsuits continued to pile up, questions arose about whether she could ever rebuild her once glamorous reputation. The road to redemption, if possible, promised to be long, arduous, and uncertain. One fact remained indisputable. Blake Lively's public image had been irrevocably altered. Once celebrated as Hollywood royalty, she now faced the consequences of her actions and decisions. The legal battles, combined with public scrutiny and media coverage, ensured that her reputation would never be the same. Whether she could regain trust or reclaim her former status remained an open question, but the narrative had already shifted, leaving Blake to confront the fallout of a carefully constructed persona that had finally begun to unravel.